My name is Kay Waddell, and today we're going to be talking about how to plant a tomato in a container. First thing is choosing a pot. You generally want to choose a pot that's at least 14 to 16 inches in width. I've chosen a cloth one that's called a smart pot, which is great for aeration. Always want to use potting soil when you're planting in a pot, never just topsoil, as it can compact down and the roots won't have the aeration that they need to grow. I also like to mix in a few handfuls of composted cow manure in with the top. This will add extra nutrients and beneficial bacteria into the soil. Then the next thing I'm going to want to do is choose my tomato. As I've unpotted it, I like to put it in the center. Now some people do like to keep their tomatoes at the soil level they're at. With a standard tomato, you could even snip off of these lower ones and plant it deeper. Another thing I like to also add to my tomatoes is maybe a few marigolds. It'll brighten it up, and actually marigolds seem to help keep the tomato worms at bay. They don't seem to like the smell of them. Another thing I like to kind of add is a little parsley. Having a little fresh parsley with your tomatoes, that's always a great thing to have. But one thing you also need to remember when taking care of your tomatoes, first of all, you need to have at least 6 hours of good direct sunlight. You don't want them in the shade. You do also want to keep them evenly moist. A deep watering is better than just a shallow watering. But it's always a good idea to check on the watering daily by sticking your finger in at least an inch down into the soil and seeing how moist it is. When watering your tomatoes, you always want to do it earlier in the day. And you want to avoid getting the leaves wet as much as possible. That's why having a mulcher on the base will help the soil from not splashing back on the plant. Plus it actually helps keep the soil more evenly moist. Fertilizer I like to do, if you like to use the organics line, the tomato tone would be a good one to use to feed your tomatoes, because as they fruit, they do require a lot of food. Another one you could also use would be the shake and feed for tomatoes and vegetables. That also has the calcium in it. One thing you may want to add is a tomato cage. What you want to be careful to do when you're planting it is make sure you're just avoiding the plant at first and just sliding it in until it reaches the bottom. As the tomato grows up through it, you can bring the leaves through there, and this will help keep the tomato off of the ground, because actually that's when you can have trouble later on this summer, is if the fruits are laying on the ground, they could possibly either be get disease or have insect issues. With a little love and tender care for the rest of the summer, you can have tomatoes fresh to eat right from a pot placed on your deck.